What if Nazi Germany had won World War II? Imagine waking up in a world where the Allies lost World War II. The swastika flies over every major city in Europe. The United States and Britain have fallen, their governments replaced by puppet regimes controlled by the Third Reich. The Soviet Union no longer exists, its people either exterminated or enslaved. Japan rules over Asia, its empire stretching from India to Australia. Democracy, freedom, and human rights are gone. This is the world that might have been if Nazi Germany had won World War II. But how could this have happened? What would life be like under a Nazi-controlled world? And would resistance have ever been possible? For Nazi Germany to win the war, history would have taken a different path. Perhaps Hitler never invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, choosing instead to focus all efforts on crushing Britain. Without the costly Eastern Front, Germany's forces remained strong, and by 1942, London falls. The British government surrenders, King George VI is exiled, and Winston Churchill is either executed or forced into hiding. With Britain gone, the United States has no European ally to support. Would America still enter the war? Or would President Roosevelt, facing massive pressure, sign a peace treaty with Germany to avoid a costly and prolonged conflict? Meanwhile, Germany's war machine turns east. The Soviet Union is invaded with full force, and this time, without the distraction of a second front, Hitler's armies crush Moscow by 1943. The Reich now extends from the Atlantic Ocean to the Ural Mountains. The United States, now isolated, faces a tough decision. If Japan had been more successful in the Pacific, perhaps destroying all of America's aircraft carriers at Pearl Harbor, would the U.S. have been forced into surrender? With Britain gone, the Soviet Union destroyed, and America neutralized, the world is now under Axis control. And this is where the nightmare truly begins. In this world, Nazi ideology dominates everything. The Greater Germanic Reich extends across Europe, Russia, and Africa. Hitler's plans for Lebensraum living space are now a reality. Millions of people in Eastern Europe have been exterminated or enslaved, their land given to German settlers. The Holocaust never ended. Instead, concentration camps continue operating for years, eliminating millions more. Jews, Slavs, Romani, and other so-called undesirables are hunted down and erased from history. By the 1960s, entire cultures have disappeared. The Gestapo and SS control every aspect of life. Cities are covered in surveillance cameras and Nazi propaganda. Speaking against the government is a death sentence. Schools teach children absolute loyalty to the Führer, raising new generations who have never known anything but fascist rule. There is no free press, no elections, no freedom of speech, no escape. If you are not German, you are either a second-class citizen, a slave, or you don't exist at all. Germany's allies, Japan and Italy, control the rest of the world. Japan rules over Asia and the Pacific, enforcing a brutal dictatorship over China, India, and Australia. In our timeline, Japan committed horrific war crimes, massacres, biological experiments, and forced labor camps. In this world, those atrocities never stopped. The Middle East is controlled by the Axis, its oil fueling Germany's war machine. Africa is a colony of the Reich, its people forced into endless labor under the iron fist of Nazi rule. South America, without U.S. intervention, falls under fascist influence, its governments aligning with Germany in fear. But what about America? Would the United States have fallen, or would it have remained independent? If America had been forced into a peace treaty with Nazi Germany, a new kind of Cold War might have begun. Instead of a rivalry between the U.S. and the Soviet Union, the world would be divided between America and Nazi Germany. Perhaps the U.S. would develop nuclear weapons, threatening to bomb Berlin if Germany ever moved against them. Perhaps Germany, having developed nuclear technology first, would have used atomic bombs to force America into submission. Would America have remained democratic, or would fear of Nazi expansion have turned it into an authoritarian state as well? Would Americans still enjoy freedom, Or would they slowly become a militarized nation, desperate to survive in a world ruled by fascism? Would technology have advanced under Nazi rule? Yes, but only in ways that served the Reich. Space travel might have happened sooner, as the Nazis were already developing rocket technology. Would the first man on the moon have worn a swastika? Medicine might have advanced, but at what cost? Nazi doctors conducted horrific experiments. If the Reich controlled science, would modern medicine exist at all? The internet, artificial intelligence, and global communication? Unlikely. The Nazi state would have controlled all information, limiting technological progress that didn't serve its goals. Instead of a world connected by free thought, it would be a world frozen in time, locked under strict government control. Could anyone have stopped the Nazis once they had conquered the world? At first, resistance movements might have continued. Secret networks in occupied countries, underground rebellions, and scattered uprisings might have fought back. But with total control of military technology, surveillance, and propaganda, Nazi Germany would have had the power to crush all opposition. As the years passed, new generations would have only known Nazi rule. Children would be raised to believe the Reich was eternal. Books, films, and schools would erase history, ensuring no one even remembered a time before the Nazi Empire. Would anyone still believe in freedom? Or would resistance have slowly faded, crushed by decades of totalitarian control? The defeat of Nazi Germany in 1945 was one of the most important victories in human history. The sacrifices of millions ensured that freedom survived. The world that could have existed, a world of slavery, genocide, and totalitarian rule, was narrowly avoided. But what if history had taken a different turn? Would we still be fighting for freedom today, or would the world have forgotten what freedom even meant? Would resistance have ever been possible, or would Nazi rule have lasted for centuries or even forever? The world we live in today, despite its problems, is one where people have the right to speak, to vote, to resist. That is a world worth protecting. But in another timeline, another reality, the world never escaped the Reich. What do you think? Could the Nazis have ruled the world forever, or would resistance have eventually overthrown them? Let us know in the comments. Like and subscribe for more thought-provoking what-if scenarios.